Today's brought to you by Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. Invest accredited for terms as low as 1 year and 10% or better, cash flowing like Warren Buffett. Welcome back to the Mobile Mailbox Money Podcast here, episode 33, where we provide capital investors and operators around the nation unfiltered value here, dropping gems. Feel free to go back and view the previous vlogs, the podcasts, the masterminds. But today's an action-packed day. Got off a couple podcasts, one with Mark Monroe, but I've got another special guest here today, Andy Teasley. Met Andy at a few different real estate note investment conferences and associations. Andy, if you could just introduce yourself for the viewers that don't know you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andy Teasley. I'm a longtime real estate investor and educator. I've been teaching how to run your financial calculator and how to do mobile home investing since 2017. So I've been doing it for a day or two.
Love it. Seasoned professional out in the industry. I think we're forced to pivot at any given time, given the financial market. And for you being a seasoned individual, past 20, 30, 40 years, great place to be in here in the alternative investment strategy of manufactured housing. Not only that, but you wrote a couple books as well, teaching people to execute savvily out in the market. Maybe you could just touch about, why that is an opportunity and kind of some hardships that you came implementing your strategy.
Okay, well, I got started like almost everyone in this industry late night watching television. I got sucked into my guru in 1982 and paid a lot of money for an adequate course that was worth about a tenth of what I paid for it. I know that's a unique story. Nobody else has fallen for that. Dabbled a lot in real estate since the 80s. Survived a lot of dips. In 2005, I made the biggest financial mistake of my life. And that was when I decided that the market was going to turn, because I could see it was going to turn. And I sold everything I didn't want to keep through the crash. And when I did that, I thought I was a genius. And I told everybody I was a genius till about 2012, when a good friend of mine, no longer with us, unfortunately, said, you bought 51 doors in 9 and 10. And I said, yeah, there's a fire sale. Houses were free. He said, well, if you hadn't sold those rental houses in 2005, what would you be worth today? And I said, well, at least another $2 million, because I didn't have to sell those to buy what I bought. And when he said that, and I actually thought about it for the first time in my life, I realized what a total screw up it had been to sell good rental houses, because I foresaw a dip in the market. Of course, it came 3 years later, and I could have had 3 years of appreciation and sold in 2008 and done much better. Or I could have just kept them, because I could have kept them right through the dip and they would be worth a lot of money now. So that was my screw up. 9 and 10 was a fire sale. Houses were free. I had a great system for buying REOs, and it worked really well, and I could buy whatever I wanted to any day of the week. Then the inventory tightened up. The banks started running out of inventory and stopped giving it away. And I was not finding the deals I had been finding. I still had 51 units to rent, and I was taking care of that. That wasn't a problem. But I was whining, and a friend of mine said, you got to go talk to Tim King. He's doing Lonnie deals in Orange County. And when he said that, they said, okay, well, I know who Tim King is, but what's a Lonnie deal? And he explained the Lonnie deal, which is the system of acquiring manufactured homes, cleaning them up, selling them, and carrying the paper for at least twice what you have in them. And he said, you got to go read this book. And I went and read the book. And at the time I said, wow, that's what I was doing with land from 2006, 7, and 8, buying it cheap, selling it, and carrying the paper. And it was a really good system, except for one small thing. When the crash happened in 2007, 8, 9, people had to choose what bills they weren't going to pay. And the note on the land you had in the path of progress, where you're going to build that cabin in the future, where you're going to do whatever it was you're going to do, it was really easy to just hand that land back to Andy and just tell him, you can have it back. I can't afford the payments anymore. So in that period, I got back 300 acres of Riverside County, California, and I would not sell it for what it would bring back then. So I still own quite a bit of it. And when I heard the system of flipping mobile homes using Lonnie's system, I said, I know that system. So I applied it and started buying and rehabbing and selling manufactured homes. Along that time, I had a class with an educator named Bill Tan, and he taught me how to run the HP 10BII calculator, which I call the time machine because it tells you what's going to happen in the future or what happened in the past. Because you can use the calculator to figure out what the original balance was on a note. You can figure out how many months there are left to pay on a note. You can figure out if I was to send an extra $50 a month, how much would that shorten my note? It's just an amazing tool. So you can go and learn various things about the deals you're trying to structure. And for the longest time, I would teach the mobile home flipping business, and I would teach that class on Sunday after Bill Tan taught his class on Saturday, or Buddy Broom taught a similar class on Saturday. And unfortunately, Buddy had reached that age with his kids where, as we dads all know, at some point your kids are that age where your weekends are no longer yours. It's either soccer games or ballet or something else. There's always something going on that takes your time. And taking a day out to teach a class, Buddy's wife said he couldn't have permission anymore. And Bill Tan flooded his house 3 times in 1 year. So they both quit teaching. And I had to start teaching that class. So I really enjoy it. Saturday, I teach everybody how to use the time machine, the financial calculator. And then Sunday, we're going to teach you how to use that tool to step up your game and do your investing. How's that for a long-winded introduction?
You painted over a couple really great topics, from seeing, hardship in conventional real estate investment strategy and pivoting into manufactured housing, and even in manufactured housing, going one step further and figuring out the paper behind that, as a evolution of a capital investor, for the income needed for us to go, live our life. That's a quite unique niche to even fall into and follow the major magnates like Lonnie Scruggs. I think his book sells for resale like $100 or whatever. It just goes to show the interest level in this environment, and to have this opportunity not only to get educated and execute in a intelligent investment strategy, having the negative connotation of manufactured housing. I think that there's truly available not only additional public acceptance of items like this, but also, that being a state of emergency and affordable housing, this is literally the cure for the problem out in the market. And to be in your position that you are currently, I think is truly a once in a lifetime opportunity to bring these strategies to the available market and have a feel good strategy. For you as the investor, teaching the strategy and implementing out in the California market, where do you see this fit kind of nationally as a facilitation for affordable housing? Obviously, it's market contingent, but what's your opinion on that?
Well, I teach my class nationwide. I've taught in I think 23 of the states, and I find that affordable housing is always the safest investment there is to make in anything in the real estate industry that's out there. There are dozens of other places to invest. I mean, you can invest in mini storages, you can invest in apartment buildings, you can invest in Airbnb, you can invest in midterm rentals. I mean, there's 100 different niches in the quote unquote real estate investing sphere. But the one that is consistent day after day, year after year is affordable housing. Because when the market's tanking, people are losing their nice house. They rent a nice house, and the people that would be renting that nice house bump down a level, and they rent a not so nice house. And the people that would normally rent the not so nice house rent the affordable housing units. And I've done studio apartments, I've done all kinds of things, but affordable housing is to, in my opinion, which is anything but humble, I would say affordable housing is consistently safe in every market. When the market's going all hogs, kids are moving out of mom's basement and into an affordable house because they're there. They've got a job. They've got something going on in their life, and it's time for them to move out and move up. So if it's going up, affordable housing's good. If it's going down, affordable housing's good. And I've got a perfect crystal ball on projecting what the real estate market is going to do. I've never been wrong. My projection is always it's going to go one of three ways. It's going to go up, down, or sideways. And I have yet to be wrong. So those are the possibilities. And affordable housing is always going to be in demand. And Lord knows we got a housing crisis nationwide.
Absolutely. I think what's so pivotal to understand this strategy is it's not a landlord and tenant component. And once you understand the component of seller finance and creating a note, selling on terms, that really starts to make sense, I think, and bridges the gap for capital investment because, not a lot of people understand manufactured housing, and to package that program into really just a private lending component, that's a truly scalable opportunity to attract private capital. And for you, teaching the ground level of to find an asset, buy that distressed, fix it up, resell it on terms, and do it properly, knowing how to structure through a mortgage calculator, those are all true diamonds in the rough, and creates an institutional investment program. Andy, I'm told that you owned 100 notes on mobile homes at one point. What does that look like, or how many notes have you created? Or maybe you could talk about owning notes on
I never have figured out what the total count is at any one time. I mean, I move through a lot of them because I acquire them, I chop them up. I teach an interesting class called Notes Are Like Play-Doh, where I drag out a pot of Play-Doh. I usually have one handy. And we talk about how when you play with that stuff, when you played with it in your kid, you could make a long, skinny spaghetti. You could make a big lump. You could make it different colors. You could make all kinds of shapes with it. And the fact of the matter is you can do every one of those things with paper. So if you have a good performing note and you need some money, that's the most liquid asset I know about. And it's up to you. You don't have to sell the whole thing. You can sell just the next 10 payments for the right discount, and you can do very well. So I teach all that in my class, and that's the reason I think the financial calculator is a key to doing any kind of creative structure in investing. You and I really met at the exchange meeting, which is the epitome of a creative finance class, in my opinion, where you get to see how things can be divvied up and divided, and how value is always going to be subjective, not objective. I've always loved the example of what would you pay for a glass of water? And most people say, oh, it's a nickel, maybe. What am I going to pay for a glass of water? And I said, well, if you're crawling across the desert and you find a vending machine dispatching glasses of water in the middle of the Mojave, but they want $100 for one, are you going to pay $100 for the glass of water? Or are you going to die? So depending on where you are, value is subjective. One of the things I love about being in the mobile home business, the manufactured housing business, is the opportunity I have to help somebody out that has a problem. Gee, we inherited mom's house. It's full of these 1985 French colonial furniture. It has green shag carpet and dark paneling, and I can't get anybody to give me anything for it. And if I do, I've got to come there. I've got to clean it out. I've got to polish it up and do all the work on the house. What do I do? And I'm in a position to say, I'll just take care of that for you. Don't worry about it. Come take the pictures. Come take the things that are important to you, your family heirlooms, leave everything else, and I'll handle it. I have a reputation in my farm. I try to do most of the ones that I'm going to keep in one 1,800 unit subdivision near Palm Springs. I have a reputation in that community of being the crazy guy that overpays for houses, because I will pay any price for any house in that community as long as I can pay for it with $500 a month payments. Because I can show you, and I will show you for in my class, the 18th and 19th, that I can pay $1 million for a house that makes $1,000 a month. And if you know the 1% rule, you know that a house that makes $1,000 a month is worth $100,000. I can pay $1 million for that house and have a very, very profitable situation for me. And if you can't figure that out yet, you really should spend some time with me.
You're just sprinkling in gems right there. I saw the glitter flowing off the camera right there. But that's so much to unpack, literally that one string of conversation right there, from the Play-Doh to the adjacents to a note investment exit, right? You can get a lump sum and refinance your note at a lower rate. You can sell portions of the payment. You can structure partials within that program. That's an exit, right? Where he's talking just now is the acquisition of a note. So finding an asset that makes sense and solving a problem, which is of utmost importance, solving a problem out in the marketplace and knowing how to structure it no matter what to make it profitable within certain guidelines, and having now the availability of an exit strategy, nimbleness on the back end. You just kind of bridged the gap right there. And obviously that's a super high level conversation of acquiring on terms, selling on terms, and then getting in a formal exit, with your lump sum of Play-Doh. For those of you that know how I'm speaking through the lines there, that's a true paid education, that you can formally probably get documents and such needed for a transaction like that. What is facilitated out at that group that you guys have here in October here in Gilbert, Arizona?
Yeah, it's Glendale actually, but
Glendale, yeah.
that's a fancy word for a suburb of Phoenix, I believe. Anyway, as I said, Saturday you're going to learn how to run the tool, because unless you know how to run the tool adequately, you're going to not be in a position to structure well. You're going to be in a position to structure poorly, and structuring poorly is something that we can stumble our way through and maybe not lose our butt. But I have a class I teach for RIAs that is called The Tale of Three Brokers. And it talks about how portioning up a note and chopping it up can make one broker seem like an idiot, the next broker seem like less stupid, but still not good, and the third broker seem like an absolute genius. And when you look at the yield for the investor in the third broker's situation, he does better than the other two. And the seller that has the note makes a higher quantity of actual cash with the third structure. And if you don't know how to run your financial calculator and you don't know how to analyze and structure deals, you can't do those things.
So for those of you that were taught to hedge on appreciation or hedge on an equity multiple of an exit strategy, this is purely a cash flow play in most cases, right? You're arbitraging a rate, you're becoming the bank in a private lending component, acquiring a position or creating a position, all truly really interesting. I find hardship at any given time of the negative connotation of manufactured housing. Oh, it's a mobile home. I've seen trailer park boys, it has a big negative effect out in the market when there's true financial freedom found, through the veil. For the people that watch here today that are potential investors or really looking for that next edge out in the marketplace, they see struggle and fix and flip on single family or whatever it may be, for the people that are discouraged because it's called a mobile home or manufactured housing, how would you address that?
Well, here's what I say. You can have a home built in a nice climate-controlled factory to exacting specifications, inspected as it's built right there by the federal government. Or you can have a house that's built together by slapping together a bunch of wooden sticks in a dirt lot by a bunch of beer-swilling yahoos. And if you want to realize how much better a manufactured home is to a stick-built home, I want you to take a stick-built home. I want you to jack it up, load it on a trailer, take it down the freeway at 65 miles an hour, and see what comes out at the other end. And I guarantee you it will not be habitable by the time it gets where it's going. So clearly, speaking as an engineer, the design and strength of a manufactured house is far, far superior to a stick-built house. Even the old ones out of the 60s and early 70s are still substantially better built structurally than that. As a housing provider, someone who rents a certain percentage of his homes, I love the fact that a manufactured home is extremely easy to repair as opposed to a stick-built home. How do you fix a leak under the floor in a slab house? You're going to end up jacking up concrete and making a big hole in a gigantic mess. In a manufactured home, you get into the crawl space, you go under there, you find the leak, and you fix it. It's a whole lot easier to take care of a manufactured home than a stick-built home.
Loved it. I met Andy. I think I saw you online, actually, of all things, because you do a crazy amount of posting online. Hard to miss. You got your unique character. It's above all. I met and went out to the Exchangers out in the Inland Empire. It's actually hosted at the Fire Center, the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, and the Exchangers meeting. I met Goodwin actually first, I believe, out at Noteworthy here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Got a great vlog and interview from him. And he's like, hey, you need to come meet this crazy guy, Andy Teasley. He's teaching all get out, great value and exactly kind of how we emulate our strategy. So it's a great meeting of the minds. I appreciate you guys inviting us out to the Exchangers. Maybe you could just touch on the Exchangers quickly, what that looks like and why that's so unique.
Well, we come together every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific with the goal of exposing our inventory, letting people know what we have and what we would rather have, working together to structure deals in a non-competitive atmosphere among a group of people who have built up trust through interactions together over many, many, many months, sometimes many years. It allows us, if we have money sitting idle in our IRA accounts, we can expose it to the room and we might find something interesting there. I convinced my dad, who's 92 now, that we should take $120,000 worth of his traditional IRA, bite the bullet, pay the taxes, and move it into a self-directed IRA and let me grow it for him. And he had been coming to Exchangers just as something to get out of the house. When you're 92, that's what you're looking for, right? You can't bowl anymore, so you might as well just have an excuse to get out of the house. And when we got the money available, I put $100,000 of his money on the board. And when I did that, we got a lot of really nice offers and structured some deals. And after the meeting, I took my dad up. We looked at the board and what offers had been made on his money, and we talked about it. He said, I like that, and I like that, and I like that, but I don't want to live $50,000 on a rental house in Detroit. And I said, no, Dad, you don't understand. That's a wrap loan. You're only going to put up 5,000 of the 50,000. Somebody else is putting up the 45. So we went back then. The meeting was from 12 to 2. So we had lunch afterwards. And my dad and I, my 92-year-old father and I taught him a class in wrap loans on the tablecloth in the grinder place where we went for lunch that day. So it's a great education to learn. It's a great opportunity to learn. And if my dad can learn at 92, you can learn at whatever age you are. There aren't too many people older than him.
So that's every Wednesday, the Exchangers. They do it on Zoom and at the Fire Center in Inland Empire Real Estate Club over there in the same building. You know, in other words, bring in deals, bring in private capital, bridging the gap from rental strategies to stuff on the board. They got like timeshares and cars for sale, as well as notes for sale or notes to be created, or really just, you know, out of general curiosity. So, you know, super unique, almost like an auction house of creative strategy. I heard a story that you placed an offer on an individual's note, and before you bought a car on terms and put money down, and then before the meeting ended, you had sold the note, got the cash, and paid the note off or something of that nature. So real dynamic of what's going on. You never really know what's going to happen. We've seen some deals throughout that time. So, you know, appreciate the invite. You know, at the end of the day, unfiltered value for the class you have here in Arizona in the Glendale market. How does someone reach out to you to sign up for that? Because a lot of local listeners here today.
I know it's not obvious, but I'm a boomer. So the phone works really well. My email works. It's Andy the Christmas Guy at Yahoo. If you want to attend my class, it's $5.99. That's both days, and you get free retakes. There are still seats available. I expect it will sell out. It's in an Airbnb, so we have limited seats for the classroom. So if you want to come, now's the time to call. And it comes with a full money back guarantee. If we get to Sunday evening and you say, Andy, you haven't taught me anything I didn't already know, I don't see any way to apply this in my life, I'll give you your money back. So far, doing this for, 17 to now is 8 years of this class, no one has ever asked for a refund. I have several students who have gone out just applying what I teach them and made over $1 million in their first year in the mobile home flipping business, including one kid who took my class at 19, went out on Tuesday after my class and bought his first mobile home for $10,000, cleaned it, sold it the next week for a $55,000 note and a $5,000 down payment. And I lent him $27,500 for the first half of his $55,000 note. So in less than 60 days, he turned $10,000 into $32,500. That's not bad for a 19-year-old kid.
That's not bad at all. You know,
and he flipped 15 his first year.
There's real players in this market, people. For the people that think nobody's doing this stuff, there's national players, and there's potential opportunity to bridge that gap as a national brand, almost bringing us all together to get larger deal flow, larger volume in the note category. You know, really exciting stuff, honestly. This business and industry isn't all that big, and we all kind of end up touching each other and sharing knowledge, sharing information, sharing how to leverage, sharing larger level opportunity. You know, I've talked to literal banks at any given time that are wanting to potentially enter into the lending on manufactured housing. And, you know, that being said, that kind of shows where the market's going, the larger money, and where people are kind of hedging their bets, and to find case critical information on how to operate, you know, is truly worth its weight in gold. Andy, where do you see this opportunity in this strategy? Do you see it growing exponentially over the next 5-10 years, or do you think it'll taper off? You know, where do you see, what's your crystal ball today?
I tell you what, my crystal ball says we have a major housing shortage in this country. And I don't know about Arizona, but in California, it is not economically feasible to build a starter house. There is no economic way because the government has made it so impossible to go out and build a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath starter house like our parents started in and we were probably hanging out in when we were born. You can't do that now in this state, I know. I presume Arizona is almost as bad now. And yeah, it just doesn't. So affordable housing is always going to be in demand. And in the last 45 years of this industry, I've never seen it where affordable housing wasn't in demand. There's always been a shortage. And I think that's going to be true forever. So manufactured housing is the affordable housing solution because we can fix this stuff up and help people get out of a problem situation and get into a safer situation. I have an interesting example about a problem situation. Bought a house from a 94-year-old woman and her grandson / caregiver, and they needed to sell their house. It was a total pig pit, and they had a pit bull, and they were waiting for a brand new subsidized apartment in Las Vegas. So I bought the house. I rented it back to them. That was our agreement. And they were enjoying the house. And the grandson called and said, "Hey, we've got rats in here. What should I do about it?" So I, of course, sent him 6 rat traps and a jar of peanut butter because in my experience, that's the best way to deal with rats. And he said, "Oh, that'll never work." And I don't think he ever used them. His grandmother passed away before they got approved. And then about 3 months later, he got approved and left to go move to Las Vegas where his mom was. And he said, "I'm out. The key's here." So I went to look at the house I'd acquired. And as I walked up, I knew there was a leak on the water heater. He had supposed to have gotten repaired, and I figured he probably hadn't. So I opened the water heater door and heard all this activity in the house. And I thought, oh, shit, he's left that damn pit bull in the house. So I go and get the keys, and I open the door, and it was not the pit bull. That house must have had 100 big gray rats.
Oh, my God.
That poor 94-year-old lady was living in a house full of rats. and it was amazing. We used peanut butter and traps, and we started shoveling stuff out of the house. And I don't know how he could let her live like that because he was too damn lazy to put down rat traps and deal with dumping the dead rats into his trash can. But I was so happy that we were able to get him out of that situation. As we were doing the rehab, we had a couple of funny stories. One is that I get a call from a neighbor, and the neighbor says, "I got one of your damn rats in my oven." And I said, "My damn rats?" "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, we know you're cleaning that yard up, and all the rats are just heading for the hills." And I said, "Okay, call the exterminator. I'll pay the bill." He says, "Oh no, we're so happy with what you're doing there. I don't mind dealing with the rat. I already killed him and threw him out." My guys joked because they took the trash trailer to the dump, and back then I hadn't acquired my dump trailer yet. And he says they backed up to the trash pile at the transfer station, throwing stuff off the back of the trailer. And suddenly 3 rats ran out of the trailer because apparently they thought the trailer, but their stuff was in the trailer. They might as well go with it. So they went and ran right into that giant trash pile. So shocked the hell out of everybody. But we have fun. It's entertaining anyhow.
You know, the stories in manufactured housing are truly heartbreaking and emotionally satisfying. You know, truly the underserved market. You know, these people, a lot of times these people are either elderly or, you know, have some disability, or really they're just a small startup family. And those environments are truly crucial here in the nation. You know, and they're struggling, you know, down to hoarding situations, down to falling behind on payments, down to can't sell their house because they can't find financing, to all the above. So, truly commendable, the stuff you're doing out here, Andy. I'll see you at Azria here on Tuesday, October 14th. There's the Alt Summit at the end of this month as well as I'll see you at your education program here in Glendale. So happy to continue the relationship here in niche market manufactured housing. Today is brought to you by Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. If you haven't had the chance, go back and view the previous vlogs, the podcasts, the walkthroughs, the testimonials, the visit down to the IEREIC in the Inland Empire, as well as a couple of other interactions. So I appreciate you all viewing here today. Unfiltered value provided and one step closer to financial freedom. That's what we call mobile mailbox money. Andy, appreciate having you on the channel today.
Happy to do it. Glad you invited me. You have a good day.